Hey there everyone, it's Jaycee. Welcome back to another perfect pairing and card making tutorial. Creating color palettes doesn't have to be challenging. Let me show you a few crafting tips for getting the perfect stenciled color palette every time. Before we get into today's project, make sure you subscribe to the Altenew channel for more card making and paper crafting tutorials. My Perfect Pairings with Jaycee series explores crafting techniques that effortlessly blend sure-to-love new releases and well-loved Altenew favorites. If you love these kinds of crafty tutorials, hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of my videos airing on the 2nd and 4th Sunday. Over on my social media and on this Altenew video where I featured these two cards, in a recent perfect pairing, a lot of you had questions about how I pick color palettes, and believe it or not, these two cards themselves use the same color palette. I just use them in different ways, and what I used on these two cards was the Art Deco Fresh Dye ink family. And the reason why I picked this set of inks was because the color families were already organized for me already. So I feel like I had a good variety of inks to make my floral elements and my stem and leaf elements. But let's say you don't have a palette that's already made for you in the case of Art Deco. So we'll quickly work through a few tips in order to get a cohesive color palette and focus solely on stencils just to simplify things. The stencil set that I will be using is the May 2025 Stencil Art Ditsy Flowers Wallpaper. The Stencil Art set is a bi-monthly subscription. And of course, whenever you do subscribe to any of Altenew's subscription services, it guarantees your stock, you get it at a discounted rate, and a nice little surprise in your mailbox every month, or in this case of Stencil Art, every other month. The first thing that I like to do is reference the layering guide. The layering guide can be found online, or it's in your product trifold or bifold, depending on the product that you're using. And aside from observing the layering guide found in the product packaging, I like to group my stencil layers based on what image they ink up on your panel. So in this case, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Stencils 1 and 2 are one group of flowers, their base layer and their detail. Generally, stencil 3 and 4 is another grouping of flowers with their stencil detail. You'll see there is another detail image here. But we're not going to worry about that quite yet. Just again, one group of flowers, another group of flowers, and then essentially there is another group of leaves, their base layer and their detail layer, and the flower centers, so that's stencils 5 and 6. And then there are other filler layers on stencil 7. So essentially what I mean is that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of images in this stencil set. Every stencil set is going to be different, so feel free to adapt this for whatever future project you have. So then I can group my stencils. Here's stencil 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and then 7. So again, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are floral elements, 5, 6, and 7 are leaf elements. And now that I have my groupings of stencil images, their respective base layers and detail layers, I can start picking a color palette. And now I don't ever really necessarily lay these out on my work surface like I am now. Really, it's just a mental picture of what groups of images will go with which color. I found this color wheel on Wikipedia. Just a free color wheel will do. Now what I like to do is pick a canvas. Now you can start on white cardstock. That's definitely the easiest way to go. But a fun way to really elevate your stenciled cards is to start on a colored background. I like to grab a pale color. In this case, I'm going to use Crafty Necessities Buttercup cardstock to ink up on this panel, which I will put in my yellow category on my color wheel here. And now I like to work in analogous colors from yellow. So that's any of the colors that are next to yellow on my little color wheel. So you'll see I'm in the yellow, green, green area here, going more towards the cool side, orange, red, violet on the warm side. And I've kind of already got my stencils organized in that way. So what I mean is all of my green foliage stencils fall along this side of my color wheel. All my floral elements fit on the warm side of yellow. And using yellow as a base is really easy for this kind of workflow. So let's put this into practice. Like I mentioned, the whole point of organizing my stencils this way is to create some sort of plan with color and using analogous colors based on my canvas base. I'm bringing out my 9x12 sticky mat grid and looking through my cutting mat to look for my A2 alignment guide. Again, I'm starting with stencil number 1, and on my color wheel, let's just align the yellow on top here. I want my floral elements to go on this side of my colors. So looking really quickly at my fresh dye inks, I'm going to start with Rouge on stencil layer number 1. This is from Red Sunset Fresh Dye Ink Set. And ink blend this layer, and you'll notice that there are some groupings of flowers that are colored in one color. It looks like in the example it's Mountain Mist, and then there's another one in Warm Sunshine. I'll sort of follow the same idea, which is coloring the Mountain Mist layers with Rouge. Then for these smaller flowers on stencil number 1, I'm going to move down the color gradient in Red Sunset to Crimson and apply a solid layer of this on these small groupings of flowers. Then I will move in numerical order again down to stencil layer number 2 and use the reference etching found in the stencil to perfectly align these images and the next layer. I still have crimson out, and I want to move down the color gradient for all of the stencil images that I used Rouge on. Down from crimson in the Red Sunset family of inks is Velvet. So then I'll color the cluster here on the top center in Velvet, because that is the next darkest ink from the layer underneath. So that is one grouping of flowers using stencil layers number 1 and number 2. And on my color wheel, I skipped all the way to red. But now we can come back closer to yellow, the base of our cardstock. So we can switch to an orange color family. On stencil layers number 3 and number 4, I'm thinking of a nice yellow-orange that I want to use on my background. So I've got Sun-Kissed Delights. This is Golden Honeycomb. And I am applying a solid wash of this to just the strawberry colored images found in the layering guide. And I over stenciled, just ignore that. We'll go to the next darkest layer, which is Amber Blaze. And with Amber Blaze, we'll color in the Warm Sunshine images that are found on stencil layer number 3 in the product packaging for a solid wash of that color. Stencil number 4 gets a bit tricky with where the details go, but I'll be sure to explain the thought process along the way. So I still have Amber Blaze out. With Amber Blaze, I'm going to color just the groupings of flowers that I colored in Golden Honeycomb, again in a solid wash, and it is generally just this top grouping of larger flowers on the stencil. So these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up here. It's the detail layer to the stencils on number 3. Then I'll move down to the next darkest color, which is Melted Butterscotch. I'm not going to stencil these 3 images yet, so these biggest blooms on detail stencil layer number 4, and I'm using Melted Butterscotch just on these small petals. You kind of have to think backwards as to what groupings of colors you used on stencils number 1 and 2, because that's where these 3 flowers come from. So moving down the line of colors, I'll use this to color in the details of my red family of flowers. So we did a warm shift from yellow. So we did an orange color family, a red color family, and now, like I mentioned, stencil layers 5 through 7 all have to deal with foliage. Foliage typically is green, so we'll work in now a yellow, green, and green shift to fill in the remainder of this image. But now we can work in the leaves. Oh, and there is a little element on here that I just noticed. On stencil layer number 5, these top 2 flowers are actually open, and I want to color them in Velvet again, the darkest ink in my red color family, because I know these are my red flowers. Everything else on here, I want to make a yellow-green. Again, we're shifting this way from our background. As I'm looking through my colors here, I think I'm kind of feeling lime. We'll do a little bright palette on this card. Again, solid wash of lime to all of the foliage elements to really fill in this background. Just be careful here in your red area. There's my solid wash of lime, of course, except for the top two red flowers that I mentioned. So moving down that line, from lime is fresh leaf. So then we should be able to color in the detail layers of all of the leaves from the previous layer, stencil layer number 5, onto layer number 6. On this layer are all of the more open flower centers as well, but I'm just going to do a really quick and simple wash of fresh leaf on the entire image. It is its own grouping of leaves to really fill in some of these more open areas. So I think we can incorporate another color family, but then there's the hard choice of which one, right? But really it doesn't have to be that hard if we look back at our little wheel here. So from yellow, we did like a yellow-green for the foliage elements, and we can go even further. This is probably as far as I would go if working on colored cardstock, to like a blue-green. So maybe for this final layer, I want to bring it back a little bit. So I'm going to use another large ink blending tool and fill this in a solid color, which is going to be Mountain Mist, to apply a solid wash, but also brighten up the panel just a touch. And this is the result of all 7 layers on the background. Now you can finish this card with a variety of Altenew sentiments. Stencil Art Ditsy Flowers Wallpaper is sure to create a wonderful focal piece to any card front, but instead I kind of want to make this a 2-in-1 card. Using the Halftone Circles Nesting die set, and this is the largest circle, and I am cutting out a little segment of this directly from the center. So now I have a positive piece, which is this circle, and then the negative, which is the larger panel. To make things simple, I'm going to put this one away for now and just work on the negative, the larger panel. So of course our background is going to be a nice little secondary focal piece to this card, and what I'm going to do is move this aside so that I have room again for my large sticky mat grid, the 9x12. And what I've already done is cut the layers to Craft Your Life Project Kit Magnificent Magnolias. So now I've grouped my magnolia images based on which layers go with which flower. So I want these magnolia flowers to be mostly white with the smallest suggestion of buttercream right in the center, just like that. And then I'll do that again with the triangle alignment images. I'm referencing my layering guide, and I'm coloring the flower center images that are colored in Warm Sunshine cardstock with Warm Sunshine ink. And then there is an additional flower center image, and I will use fresh leaf to do that. So you'll notice I'm still using the same color families as the stenciled background, just so that we're not introducing a completely new color or palette to this card. And then that's it. Now it's as easy as assembling the layers of the magnolia. So I'm following my alignment guide. And here is the result of the 2 layered magnolias found on the die set packaging for the Magnificent Magnolias Project Kit. Off camera, I also stamped the Lots of Love sentiment in Obsidian Pigment ink, and also used the offset die in the Magnificent Magnolias die set to cut out the sentiment. I'm bringing in a white panel of cardstock onto my Altenew stamp wheel, and I'm kind of doing a little bit of planning here. I want the magnolia branch to peep out from underneath the die cut circle, so I'm overlaying this image within my circle, planning the placement of my 2 magnolias. And I'm not going to stamp onto the negative piece of the Ditsy Flowers wallpaper. I want to stamp directly onto my white cardstock panel because I only care about what's going to sit and show from within the circle. Now I have all my pieces ready to assemble this card. I'm going to take my stenciled image and glue this right on top of my white stamped card panel. Then I'm going to foam mount my magnolia images where I had them planned earlier. And I kind of like that magnolias are sort of breaking the circle frame. Then with even more of the foam tape, I mounted the sentiment to the center of my panel. And I'm going to be a little bit careful of how I apply my jet black ink spray. I'm only applying enough to the center left portion here, in this bottom right area. Again, just to help break that barrier of the little circle element on the inside. And that will complete this first iteration of this card using both Craft Your Life Project Kit Magnificent Magnolias and Stencil Art Ditsy Flowers Wallpaper. Now we still have the other piece to work with. To start the second card and use the positive circle piece, I again want to make a magnolia branch on this piece. Off camera, I repeated the same steps as the first card by die cutting, assembling, and ink blending on these magnolia flowers. Again, I created little suggestions of buttercream yellow in the center of the magnolias. And then I also stamped and die cut the You Are Special sentiment with obsidian pigment ink and its coordinating offset sentiment die in Craft Your Life Project Kit Magnificent Magnolia. And again, with all of these elements, I want to plan where I want to stamp the branch onto my background. So on my stamp wheel, I'm grabbing another panel of white cardstock. And then with a little bit of rolled satin masking tape, I'm going to center the circle onto my white panel. Then I'll place my magnolia branch on top of all of these elements. And again, plan where I want these magnolias to go. And I am going to stamp with obsidian pigment ink on top of all of this. Once I have stamped onto the circle in the position that I want, I'm going to remove that piece and then continue to stamp onto my white cardstock panel with the outline of the branch. I kind of want this branch to continue downward, but I only want a portion of it to peek out from underneath this circle. And instead of using masking tape or any of that, I'm planning for this portion of the image to be underneath the circle, and I won't stamp it on top of the circle. This circle will hide the beginning of the branch as if this is one large image, and I'll show you what I mean when I assemble this. So now I can remove this panel. Then with a little bit of foam tape on the back of the circle, I'm going to align the continuation of the magnolia branch just like so. So now you can't even tell that this part of the image has been repeat stamped, and now it looks like the branch continues up and then tucks behind this wallpaper piece behind it. So now it's just a matter of adding in the die cut magnolia flowers. Then I will foam mount the sentiment on top of the circle as well. Then of course, again, just like the previous card, I am going to be pretty deliberate about where I put my jet black ink spray splatter. And my camera battery died, and I lost the remaining footage, but it's okay because I was done with the card after adding splatter anyway. So we made a beautiful 2-in-1 stenciled card with just a little knowledge of color theory and how to use the color wheel. This is a very superficial look at how to use color, but at the same time it's the easiest way I have found to experiment with color in Altenew's gorgeous layering stencils. My series encourages you to shop your existing Altenew stash and rekindle their love with newer releases. Perfect Pairings with Jaycee airs on the Altenew channel every second and fourth Sunday of the month. Please make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for tuning in to this perfect pairing episode with me, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hello there! Did that video just spark your creativity? And do you want more project ideas and inspiration videos too? Well, if you do, please make sure that you subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, make sure that you do click that notification bell so you don't miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye!